This might be the greatest audiovisual experience in techno music all time. Anima and his innovative music style and shows have blown up. He's on the course to 4 million monthly listeners on Spotify and sold out shows all around the world. But this success is only possible because Anima knows something that very few producers know about making hit songs. In fact, the more I looked up into it, the more I realized this wasn't just another producer riding a hype train. This was a masterclass on how to create and showcase your artistic vision in music. Anima's success is built upon 3 steps: creating a vision, translating it into art via music, and conceptualizing the whole vision. This formula is known by many artists and producers and used extensively, but Anima was one of the few who innovated and perfected it. First off, Anima is allies of Matteo Milleri, who is already one of the person behind the duo of Tale of Us, and he was already quite successful before he created Anima. But success didn't stop him trying something new. This was the vision of Anima. From over 1 exabyte of information uploaded by humans to the cloud, data starts coding itself into what we call Anima. So it was a self-created AI coming into existence and becoming a self-conscious. But how did Anima translate this into music? The first thing that Anima uses is AI-like vocals in his tracks. If you go to Anima's debut album, Sentient, and take a listen to Reminding, you will find first sign of it.
Make you search your inner core.
Then comes the consciousness and everything makes even more sense.
Consciousness.
And then we can hear figuratively AI coming into the existence and becoming a conscious.
Sentience of internal, external, or virtual existence.
And then we go to explore your future. Now I'm going to create this track from the scratch and show everything because this was requested by my community, so I have to do this. We have something like this.
Explore your future.
I think this is more or less how we all visualize AI sound. You see, this is a 3-step. The first 2 steps was obvious, but Anima made it even more obvious by conceptualizing these into the artwork. And now you can see the same idea on the promo of Anima's debut Sentient EP. And then comes the eternity and we see for the first time AI coming into existence visually. But you can argue this is the easy part, using AI vocals to conceptualize AI. But there is more genius in it. If we go back to the vision, we are in the futuristic world where AI comes into the existence. It's almost like life coming into the existence from the puddle. How could you translate this into music? In this part, Anima uses futuristic synthesizers extensively, and the whole concept really runs around extensive sound design and putting attention to detail to lead sounds. Let's take a look at this siren. It is similar to something like this. While sound at first sounds simple, it is actually not. There are a lot of details in it. The first obvious thing will be, of course, the LFO roll. The main trick really comes from changing the shape of the LFO while really rolling it, and also changing the roll amount. We have this LFO2, which is really rolling the levels of the oscillators and the cutoff at the same time. And we have the automation on top, which really makes things much more interesting. And the sound gets more adhesive by intricate play between distortion and FM synthesis. This will be more like a soft-tooth pan to the right and left, right? But the main idea is we have like more scarified a little bit oscillator B and using oscillator A on the sides, using B as a FM source and modulating the A. Without sounds dull and weak, and of course then we have tons of distortion and reverb. And attention to detail with the sound design comes even more into the world when you take a look at track like Explore Your Future. The main lead sound goes like this. At first sight, you may think this is another step sound, but it's really not. If you take a look at the main bulk of the sound, the aggressiveness of the sound again comes from intricate play between two oscillators and tons of distortion on top. First oscillator, it will sound pretty hollow. Oscillator B, none of them are strong enough, but the power again comes from doing a lot of FM from B. Right? Without? Again, it sounds hollow, isn't it? Especially for this type of lead is how much distortion the sound has. Without it, it sounds louder, but it is not loudness that makes the sound. It's that distorted, warm high end. With it? The same thing with the multiband compression. Here. But if you think this is enough, it was not. I was again listening and listening, and there's different layers on the sound. They are glued so well, you don't really hear it if you don't pay attention. The first one is the second layer, and then another like a hat layer, and then we have like a pad layer to make it more dramatic. Do you hear it? You have to pay attention. And then we have final layer just to bring much more drama before the drop. Right? And the same thing here. Another noise. Just opens up to get even more attention. Listen just before the drop. The patch itself is of course a bit more complicated than that. It's actually quite complicated. We have a simple plucky envelope here, but then we had the second envelope goes for the cutoff. Just opening up very fast, but that second envelope also modulates different things, like the drive amount. It actually cuts slightly off at the initial hit, and also moves the frequency of the distortion filter. And then we have the third envelope, which is extremely short, and that also controls the amount of FM. So it is giving this like plucky initial hit. By the way, if you wonder how I get this warmer sound in my Serum patches, I almost extensively use my wavetable packs. For example, this one is from my Sub 37, and this is actually preset available in my new Nebulous Serum Melodic Techno Preset Pack. You will find tons of cool patch there. You can either use or re-engineer or reverse engineer to learn even more tips and tricks if this is the type of sound that you are looking for. By the way, we still have the Cyber Week deal on mercurialtones.com. If you want to try any of my presets, samples or courses, take a look. This is probably your last chance to get that good deal. Alright, you got the idea and the sound, but how do you conceptualize this lead into visuals? Well, Anima has really the perfect execution of conceptualization. Take a look at the same lead that we just made. You see how clear from vision to conceptualization and the music, how everything comes together. This is really genius. Now, let's go back to vision one more time. And if we take a close look, for example, in the eternity, we will see that after AI comes to life or gains consciousness, it tries to break through and be free. How do you translate this into music? The answer is the bass lines. Please take this one with a pinch of salt because I just sketched up in 5 minutes, so a lot of things are missing. But I think this is still important to show the idea behind the bass. Kick and driving sub, keeping it minimal. The main power is coming from the stabs and accents in the bass. The bass stab 1. And then we are completing this one similar but slightly different second stab. Very cool, isn't it? And then we have a final FM hit to give that big room ambience. Remember, for this type of tracks to work, you have to really feel the bigness of the track. Very cool. Just simple sawtooth with a lot of distortion. And the main trick is modulating the decay amount and cutoff with your velocity. So you can even add accents to accents. And the second one is a bit more simpler, more in the middle, a bit resonant. Same idea here, also accent to accent. And FM step is just FM step using a modulator, in this case sine wave modulate or square wave, to get this sound. To be honest, it is a bit different in the original track, but I didn't want to spend too much time. Idea is the same. Cool. Like Eternity, if you take a look at the Explore Your Future, the bass is straightforward, driving, minimalistic, but powerful. We have first regular Anima kick, which is thick and pretty long. And then just rolling sub layer, filling on the low end, single soul line with filter. And of course a bit of distortion to make it warmer. A bit EQ and sidechain the kick. The magic happens again our second bass line, which is half rolling bass line but much more aggressive and powerful. How do you do this? Idea is super simple and straightforward. Again, 2 sawtooths. Kind of a plucky envelope but a bit sustained on the top end, and plucky release, half plucky second envelope on your cutoff. First oscillator is just simple. The second one is a bit unison, but it's on the higher end. But to get the more aggressive sound, first we add the noise and a sub under it, so it gets really strong. And then obviously a good amount of distortion. And yet again we are modulating the distortion amount, which makes initial hit even harder. And then the same thing in the EQ, modulated EQ to emphasize on this first initial hit. And afterwards we have first one more distortion with EQ, second EQ, and sidechain the kick. So this makes our low end straightforward, quite minimal, yet very powerful. Very cool, isn't it? And this is how we conceptualize the bass as well. Take a look at Eternity one more time. The bass really gives you the power and determination. If you feel like you are learning from this video, please consider like and subscribe. It helps a ton. I think at this point you really understand the 3-step approach that Anima used and got him the success that he has today. One last thing that I want to do is actually just to take a look at the other things in his track Explore Your Future, so that we understand the whole concept. The one thing that Anima does really well is actually not overcrowding his track and sticking to the main ideas that he has. For example, in Explore Your Future, the main idea is obviously the big synth and the driving low end. And all the rest is just there to support the main idea. For example, we have the simple on-beat cymbals first. I'm just using my unlocked drums pack here. Cutting a tail, EQ, a little bit stereo beat, a dynamic EQ, a bit reverb, and then a compression to make it very snappy. Really cool. And then of course we have the closed hat to balance this one. Very simple, but there are small nuances in it. In this case, we have 3 claps. I will say 1 main clap, this one, and 2 layers. And then we alternate between layers to make this variation in our clap. Take a listen. It is small, but it is there. And another thing in Anima's track that is important is those ambient hits. Anima goes for this big apocalyptic world, things like this. An ambient hit with a huge reverb so that we feel like we are sitting in a big hall. If we take off the reverb, very simple sounds. When you put the big reverb like Valhalla Vintage here with a long release time, this turns into the huge room, and a bit EQ creates that bigness in the ambience. The same applies to our stabby sounds. We have this like a laser sound coming from Serum. Then we're just using envelope on our chorus pitch. So pitch is going very fast down with the cutoff envelope. Chorus, tons of distortion and so on. And then you layer this one with tom hits. Again, the same idea, making the sound dark with EQ and adding a lot of reverb. First one is the small room reverb, and then you have the echo on top to emphasize on the reflections. And together they create this like war drums style ambience. Right? And then of course the downer is not important, just the noise. And this whole thing creates this beautiful beat that really complements the main sound. I think independent of you like Anima sound or not, you can really see how much work and effort goes into creating all this together. And it's a really big lesson for any producer who wants to establish their own sound. There are tons of different Anima copies, although people using machine vocals or although using this type of lead sounds, but none of them has this clear-cut concept that Anima has created. And in 10 years, when people look back, they will probably remember Anima, but not the copycats. Keep that in mind. If you want to learn more about pro producers and how they make their tracks, I have more videos over here. Take a look.